In a number of studies, Russia is recognized to be the most educated country in the world. Over 1 million people work in Russian science and over 5 million in education. You would suppose Russians must be familiar with the successes of their national science and proud of them. But they aren't. Russians, in fact, are not very keen on science. The country is only 28th in the world ranking of scientific literacy. Over a third of Russians believe an electron is bigger than an atom and think that antibiotics can kill viruses. Only 7% Russians read scientific news regularly, even fewer discuss them with their friends. But when Russians do talk about science, what exactly are they talking about? Higgs boson, Ebola vaccine or NASA space mission? Sure. Particle collider in Dubna, Chelyabinsk meteorite research and Russian biomolecular computer? Not really. Russians get information about science mostly from national media, television, radio, internet, and press. A special media analysis in early 2014 revealed a very small share of science content in Russian media. The agenda looked like the key figure in national science in 2013 was President Vladimir Putin. And the only thing Russian scientists did was discuss the reform of Russian Academy of Sciences. There was obviously a gap somewhere between science and media. Finding it and trying to bridge it was the aim that the Communication Lab project was designed for. Communication Lab has for the first time gathered together in one place over 200 representatives of Russian science, media and communications and asked them a simple question: what stops you guys from talking to each other? As it turned out, Russian media are generally quite interested in writing about national science. It's sometimes just hard for them to understand, and only a few scientists are ready to talk to the audience comprehensively. Perhaps the reason here is the lack of a special bridge between scientists and journalists, a kind of specialists that understand the specific language of science and can translate it to media in an interesting way. Using open source data and expert pool, we have tried to count how many such professionals there are in our country. As the research showed, no more than 22% of scientific organizations in Russia have press offices. The number of scientific journalists is less than 300 people for the whole country, and even less work in science communications. There is about 0.4 PR specialists per 1,000 scientists in Russia. Those few professionals, the so-called science communicators, became the project's lead characters. The most courageous of them presented their research organizations to federal media and bloggers and invited them to make experimental materials about their work. Then, the best media materials about science, some of them created within the project, some independently, were awarded a special prize by the jury of Tech in Media National Contest. It became the first professional award for science communicators in Russia. In partnership with Faculty of Journalism of Moscow State University, we held Lab Saturdays, a prototype of future master degree program on science communications. After that, 23 experts from the field shared their experience and case studies for a manual science PR formula. And finally, to help scientists and journalists connect quickly and directly, we launched an online project, Open Science, an experimental science news aggregator where scientists can publish their news on their own. Journalists can subscribe to get the news directly from the source and contact any author from all over the country. In the first 2 months after launch, Open Science collected over 60 news from 30 scientific organizations from all over Russia, and some of them widely spread in federal media. By the end of the year, more than 260 materials were published in federal and regional media, with total audience reach over 80 million people. Some new science popular projects started. Several scientific organizations created their social media pages for the first time ever. Some research institutes opened vacancies for PR managers. Science communicators realized that what they do is a young but already a meaningful profession. But the most important thing is that by efforts of the community, by the end of 2014, the image of science has significantly changed in the media. It's not just about the number of published materials which has increased, but also about their content. It already looks different. Because when 200 people come together willing to start a dialogue, they will surely start it.